Now, the Thabo Bester saga continues. Police are working to establish how the body that was burnt in Thabo Bester's cell was obtained and ultimately smuggled into the Mangaung prison. Meanwhile, a high-level delegation is in Tanzania to bring back fugitive Bester and Nandipha Magudumana. Now, they were arrested on Saturday, and our senior reporters Silindelo Masikane, Dasen, Thathiah, and of course Aviwe Mtila has been watching these developments, and I'll be talking to them right now. So let's start with you, Sli. I mean, you spoke to Nandipha's brother. What exactly did he tell you?
He was giving me a history in terms of his and his wife's encounter with Thabo Bester. They were introduced to him back in 2021 as TK Ngwana. He says to me that their interactions were always on a video call. They had never met Thabo Bester, and it's only after his own investigations did he ultimately find out that his sister was in some kind of a relationship with Thabo Bester. And he says that in the beginning he was introduced as a business partner, or a business mentor rather, should I say, and that at some point he and his wife actually lived in the Hyde Park hideout where Bester and Nandipha resided. This was back in March of 2021. He says that Bester then ultimately kicked them out, Nandipha telling Nandipha's brother as well as his wife that he doesn't want them there anymore. Nandipha saying that, you know, they should leave because Bester is a very dangerous man and, you know, he could hurt them. So they fled the Hyde Park hideout, from what I understand, in the middle of the night. And they're saying that for a while now, they've been trying to alert authorities or anyone who would listen that Bester was alive, saying that their cries fell on deaf ears. The brother saying that, in fact, it's only when he reached out to Ground Up where he actually got some kind of a positive response, and developments then started to occur. I actually put it to him because we have seen reports that he tried to extort his sister for money in order to keep his mouth shut. He says that he was emotional at the time and intoxicated, and that in fact he really didn't mean to do that. It's just that he was quite frustrated by the entire situation. Let's take a listen.
Do you dispute that you were extorting your sister for money to keep this a secret?
Like I said, I was intoxicated, and I don't even remember what I was doing because of the emotions I was going through. And,
so are you saying when you sent her the WhatsApp message where you were demanding money, you were intoxicated?
Yes, I was intoxicated. I was very intoxicated because I was going through the thing of losing a place, and I was quite very emotional. Because on that night, when I even called the cops that night. My friend who I won't mention his name, but I called the cops that night because while we were in the cottage, Nandipha called Utumi. Tumi, you can explain this one, the call that was made by Nandipha to you guys.
Oh, yeah, Nandipha called us that night saying she will Uber for me and my son and Nati to wherever we need to go because that place is not safe for us.
Yeah.
This man is dangerous. And which man is this, Nandipha? And he's saying TK is going to shoot you guys in the heads. So my husband, in that moment, he was like, why am I being threatened by this man? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to leave my furniture, everything. After you told me to come and stay here, I want to see what he's going to do. What happened is Nandipha Ubered for me and my son. I left. I went to Soweto. At around midnight, I think 12 a.m.s, running for our lives, he and my son.
Interesting developments there, Sli, but of course, you know, we need to know also about the documents that was submitted. You know, how was the body basically released for burial purposes, and there are so many missing pieces here, Aviwe. I would like to ask you, we also know that the length of the body that was found in the cell was also very different, about almost 2 meters or 0.2 meters different in size than Thabo Bester's length. What else can you tell us about these actual documents?
That's exactly what I've been looking at, Baron, at the staged death that happened on the 3rd of May back in 2022, of course, where a lot of inconsistencies are already being pointed out. I have a number of documents at my disposal, including documents that were handed in at Home Affairs, affidavits from G4S and the likes, as well as the autopsy that came out actually a day after the actual said death. So all of these point out that there was a grave injustice in terms of following the Correctional Services Act, and that act, of course, it says that an inquest into the death needs to happen thoroughly. Of course, while this is a worldwide practice, in South Africa it's more important and more looked into, especially, of course, given our history that we had in the apartheid era, where a lot of deaths were unexplained between inmates, So it's an inquest that's supposed to be very thorough, a number of stakeholders working together to actually figure out what happened and explain the death properly and ensure that that death, that body, for example, is the relevant person, and that body is to be released to the family where all investigations have been done. In this particular instance, the documents point that this is most likely not done. For example, we know that just on the 4th of May last year, a day after this said fire happened in the cell, already the pathology services pointed out that, one, that body possibly could not be Thabo Bester, and secondly, that body was dead before the actual said fire. Of course, you pointed out the issue of the height. The height was much shorter, and the body mass itself didn't weigh as much as Thabo Bester weighed. Also, there were gashes to the head injuries, for example, in the said body. Also, no smoke inhalation, which pointed out that that body was actually placed in the cell with a number of accelerants that were put there to cause the fire, of course, staging Bester's death. That's just a day after, of course, the said fire. But in that very day, we had Correctional Services issuing out a statement suggesting that Thabo Bester had died in a cell, and that statement that we, of course, know of. Also, G4S in their affidavit painting out that nothing out of the ordinary happened, no foul play, basically. Thabo Bester was dead. Of course, we know Correctional Services now done a U-turn saying that it actually received that documentation just some 2 weeks ago in March, accompanied by the DNA that actually points out that that body that died there was not Thabo Bester, but also a number of inconsistencies still into how the body was released into the care of Nandipha Makutumana. But we do know, of course, procedurally, there's supposed to be DNA that's conducted, and that body released to that family, a direct family member for burial. But the body was released before those investigations were concluded, which we do know now, according to Correctional Services themselves. Those investigations were only concluded some 2 weeks ago in March. More than 10 months later, after the autopsy had already pointed out that that was not Thabo Bester, and in fact the person that was placed in that cell was already dead before the actual fire. So a number of questions that need to be answered by the likes of G4S, for example, to tell us why they gave the green light to Thabo Bester, declaring him dead. Correctional Services themselves, the statement that they made suggesting that it was Thabo Bester, clearly indicating that that inquest that Correctional Services Act prescribes was not done in this instance.
Dasen, I would like to ask you, I mean, you've also been on this story. You are in KZN. Now, Dr. Nandipha's father has been taken in for questioning with 2 other people as well. Is it actually questioning, or were they arrested? That's the first question. And of course, like Aviwe just said, it seems like there are more people than just these 3 that were now taken in for questioning that are obviously involved in this whole case. What can you tell us?
Well, that's the interesting thing about this saga, as we've been calling it, because there are elements in so many parts of the country and also beyond our borders. And let's talk specifically now about that KZN link. So the SAPS has finally confirmed that there was an arrest that took place in KwaZulu-Natal. Well, they incorrectly stated that it was the Eastern Cape, but it actually took place in Port Edward in KZN. That was on Friday. So they're saying that a 65-year-old man was arrested at his residence there. He's one of 2 suspects that have been arrested. Now, this is something that we were aware of. We knew that detectives from this team that has been tasked with this case has been working here. Now we finally have that confirmation. The other arrest being that of the G4S employee, a 39-year-old man that has been arrested. So this team says that those suspects have been arrested for aiding and abetting a criminal, and that's why they were taken in. So they'll have to be taken to Bloemfontein. They'll be appearing at the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court on Tuesday. So that's tomorrow. So this is very interesting because the SAPS is, as it is practice, is not naming these suspects, and they're not telling us about the association necessarily beyond the company that the one suspect works for. But at the same time, the brother of Dr. Nandipa has also told us that, in fact, they were concerned about the whereabouts of their father, and in fact he hasn't been able to reach his father. So there was a lot of anxiety there. So there is that element. We'll have to wait until this matter gets into court to find out exactly who they have in custody. You asked about other arrests. That's something that the National Commissioner is also not ruling out at this point. So Fani Masamula is saying that there is a high possibility that there could be other suspects that are arrested. But that makes sense because this is far bigger than just the people that are at the center of it. This surely was a web that was created to assist Thabo Bester to actually get out of prison. There was an entire network of people, it would seem, that were all playing a part in ensuring that he finally got out. But something else that came out in that statement was around there's this common phrase that is being used by the SAPS now in saying that the media shouldn't be putting undue pressure on the SAPS to talk about their work or to force these investigations in a sense. I'm paraphrasing here. But there's an irony in that because it was actually investigative journalism that brought this case out eventually now, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing now and seeing the progress that we are talking about.
A question though, is this now a KZN case or is it a national police case at this point? Because there has been some confusion about that, Dasen.
Well, so this will be handled by that team that is tasked nationally to deal with this. It was just by virtue of that suspect being in KwaZulu-Natal, and that's why the team has come here. But that's also common practice because generally a team of detectives, no matter where they are working, will follow their suspects to wherever it is that investigation will take them. So that's one part of the team. At the same time, while we're talking about this team doing its work in KwaZulu-Natal and transporting their suspect back to Bloemfontein, we also know that that other delegation has gone to Tanzania, and that's the other part of this process, because that's where they'll now be working on talking to authorities there to ensure that Thabo Bester and Dr. Nandipa will be able to be brought back into the country to be tried here so that they'll appear before a court of law here. So that's a process that is currently underway. The SAP is confirming that. The police minister also talking to our colleague Siphamandla Goge earlier, saying something similar, that that process is also currently underway.
Slee, coming back to you, of course, Dasen just mentioned the delegation being sent to Tanzania to bring back Thabo Bester and Dr. Nandipa. What's the latest you can tell us from those developments?
From what we understand, the team has already touched down in Tanzania. They've been received by the High Commission, and we understand, of course, that there are a number of processes that are going to unfold while they're there. The delegation comprises, of course, of officials from various departments, including law enforcement, the NPA, as well as the Department of Justice. Let's take a listen to Police Minister Bheki.
At about 8 last night, I spoke to the team that has landed already they landed at Kilimanjaro, and then they were in Arusha. They will be taking matters forward. Maybe one can talk more about those matters that are there for, but it does look like up to that time that one has spoken, things are going well. them coming back does not really depend on the team. It also depends on the legal processes of the other side. The team is from South African Police, is NPA, that is their Home Affairs and Correctional Service. That's how team is made. With a team we trust is a team led by the Deputy National Commissioner of the South African Police. It's a high-level team. We hope they'll do us best and then they'll do us best to bring Bester back.
Any indication, because this is a pressing matter, if I were to push you, when do you anticipate that to happen? I know you say it depends on the legal processes from the Tanzanian side.
Well, we don't know, but we expect the team to be back today or tomorrow. What they would have negotiated, we'll be getting the report going forward. But we hope they'll go the best and they'll do the best.
Upon arrival, what happens to the two?
Well, the matter mostly will be the justice matter, really. Ours is to arrest those people. I think first thing that we'll have to do is to hand them over. One, I think, needs to go to the correctional service, belong to the correctional service, and one will have to follow the legal processes and all, and that both falls under Ministry of Justice.
Now, of course, Lee, we heard the stories when, Dr. Nandipha and Thabo Bester, when they were found, they were in possession of multiple passports. There was even, stories that Dr. Nandipha used lookalikes for them to enter the country. This is quite a, very in-depth sort of a getaway that they planned. What can you tell us about this, exactly the passports that were on them and how they actually managed to land in that country and almost on their way to Kenya?
So those are details that we're still trying to confirm with some of our sources. We have been told, of course, that they possibly did leave South Africa through the Beitbridge border, making their way to Tanzania in that direction. At this point, we are, of course, also trying to probe with Home Affairs exactly how they managed to leave the country and from which border, because at that particular initial briefing where it was confirmed that they were found in Tanzania, Police Minister Bheki did stress that their passports, their multiple passports, did not have stamps of entry or exit. So it's unclear exactly where they left from, but of course more questions for Home Affairs in terms of how they were able to get multiple passports and exactly whether they have their own investigations into this particular matter.
Thank you so much. Those were our senior reporters, Silindelo Masikane, Dasen, Thathiah, and Aviwe Mtila, just giving us an update there on the whole Thabo Bester saga, as we mentioned earlier. Of course, we don't know when exactly, like the Minister said, Minister Cele said, they will be back in the country with the two fugitives. But could be tomorrow, could also be on Wednesday. But we also do know that Minister Ronald Lamola said that he will be briefing the Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Wednesday. We will definitely be keeping you updated with the story and the developments as it goes.